Hello and welcome back to another episode of this week's watches. And again, this week, like every single week, we are pushing the boundaries of variety, and it's what we're truly trying to do here at Kibble Watches. We want to keep it fresh, especially in an industry that's just talking about investment and seems to be just talking about that side of the market constantly at the moment. It's getting really repetitive and boring for me. I'm sure it probably is for you guys and girls as well. So we want to focus on interesting, unusual watches, watches you've never seen before, and stuff that you're going to buy because you love it, not because you care what it's going to be worth in a year or 2 years or 5 years. You know, as much as that is a conversation that I understand why it's had, I don't think it should be at the forefront of our decision making when buying a watch. So that is why variety is everything, and that's what we focus on here. Now, as always, if you want to skip all my rambling, which there's usually a lot of it, you can go down in the description. There is a timestamp to every single watch we're showing here today, so you can skip directly to see that watch. There's also a link to the website, so you can go over and purchase the watch. Now, if you do like the watch, I will say go straight over, have a look, have a read of the website, make sure everything's okay, ask any questions, and then make the purchase, because things are flying fairly quickly still, even though the market's down and everything's going to shit. We seem to be doing okay. I think the variety is the key there. But I just wanted to make that clear. Head over to the website, ask the questions. Do understand, obviously, this goes out early on Saturday, and I do have a life and a pregnant wife, so therefore I can't just be at the computer 24/7 replying to emails. So do forgive me if I am a bit late in replying and someone beats you to the mark and just purchases the watch. You know, it's not really anything we can do about that, so I do apologize. Now, this week we have, as I said, an incredible variety. I'm excited to bring it to you guys and girls. And what I'm going to try and do every week is on this little stand at the back, I'm going to put the two most opposite watches we possibly have for sale in this week's drop. And this is the perfect example right here. We have an interesting Corny automatic jump hour on a bracelet. It's insane. I suspect you guys and girls would have never have seen anything like this, and I'm excited to show you. And then we've got a really gorgeous OP Date with a very interesting dial, box and papers from 1965. It's either going to be something you love or you hate, and that goes for both of the watches in two very different ways, which is why I really like them, and I like everything that we bring to the website. Now, in terms of what's on wrists, I'm sure some of you guys and girls have already noticed it. This is very different to what I usually wear and very different to what we usually offer. But this is a 41mm Rolex Datejust slate dial. The exact reference, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not a reference guy, but it's 126300. Really cool watch, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys and girls, this is probably going to be coming to the website soon. However, because of the strikes of the rail that have happened recently, there's been a delay with me getting it to the watchmaker to open up and assess and give his opinions, because we got the watch in, and unfortunately the box was fake, which I noticed straight away. And whenever something like this happens, it raises flags, and it should raise flags for everything. Now, the watch to me is 100% real. The dial, the hands, everything. I've opened it up, I've looked at the movement. I believe 100% this is a real watch. However, because of the fake box, I want to get another professional opinion just to be sure, because at the end of the day, we back every single thing we sell, and if there was ever an issue, we would refund 100%. But rather than just taking a whim and going, oh, I think it's okay, let's just put it up, even though there has been that little red flag, I want to just be triple sure and make sure everything's good. We've run it against the list, we've checked all the reference serial, everything's good. But I want to be certain. So hopefully you guys and girls appreciate that. And if you are consigning with us, and it does take a little bit longer to get to this point of selling, because we're going through these procedures that we like to put in place, just remember that when you come to buy a watch from us, the watch you're buying has gone through those same procedures, so you can buy with confidence. It might be frustrating when you want to sell your watch, but just reverse it and understand when you come to buy a watch, you're getting everything perfect. So just keep that in mind, and I wanted to state that and be honest with you guys and girls with a watch example actually on my wrist. So there you go. So now that we have got all the rambling out of the way, we're going to get onto the watches on the table. You know what, I'm just going to start with what I think is absolutely amazing. We're going to start with the Corny. It's not the most expensive, it's far from it on the table today, but it's definitely the most interesting, and I think you guys and girls are going to find it really cool as well. Whether it be something you buy and wear, that's another question. We'll discuss it when we're taking a closer look, so let's dive in. Could we start off this week any more crazy? I mean, look at this insane watch. What you're looking at is a Corny automatic jump hour from the 1970s, and in fantastic condition, especially when you consider this is a chrome case. Now, something to point out, obviously the 70s and the 70s design is one of the things I absolutely love, and I know you guys and girls are well aware of this with how many I offer, how many I own personally. However, the 70s was also a time of construction and build quality not being at the top of the priority list. It was all about design. And that's very evident here when you look at this watch. However, this one is still built incredibly well. Now, something to keep in mind is this is entirely chrome, which means it's a base metal with a chrome plating over the top. What does that mean? It means if you wear this a lot, you could find that the chrome plating starts to wear off. So do keep that in mind. It's like a gold plating, if you will, but it's silver in color rather than gold. One thing to keep in mind as well is this is a very kind of different watch in terms of the wearability. This won't be for everyone, so really, you know, understand that you're buying a collector's piece here, something that's more historic and more of a sort of point of history within watches, rather than something you're probably going to wear every day and rely on in terms of your timekeeping. Now, timekeeping wise, it's actually running very well, especially when you consider there's a automatic AS caliber 2072 inside, which has been converted for the jump hour. But still, I would not rely on a jump hour for your everyday time. Now, the way it works, you can see you have the continuous seconds spinning away right there. You then have your minutes and your hours. So if we pull out the crown and start moving, you'll see if we go the right way, as we get up to the hour, it changes to 2, and then past that 3, and so on and so on. So that's how a jump hour works. Nice, simple, and very effective. A digital display, if you will, prior to digital displays being a thing with electronic movements. You've got an original sign crown, original sign caseback, and original sign bracelet. This really is incredible, and not something you will probably see again for a very long time, and if you do, it won't be in this kind of condition. Now, as stated, this isn't for everyone, and we're going to show it on wrist, and you'll see even more so why this won't be for everyone, but I absolutely love it. So let's show it on wrist. And here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. This is sized to my 7-inch wrist, and that's pretty much near the middle of the clasp extension, so you can go out or go in. So that gives you an idea on what size wrist this would fit. Obviously, you've got that absolutely wacky case design, case thickness, and you know what? It is actually surprisingly comfortable on the wrist. It is a behemoth of a watch, especially with that thickness and that overall design. I just think it looks so funky, so cool, so of its era, and unapologetically so as well. So this is 42mm by 47.5mm lug to lug. It's 15mm thick and 19mm on the lugs right here, which you may be able to swap out, but to be honest, you'd probably keep it on the bracelet anyway. So go check this wacky watch out on the website today. From there, we might as well go to what's obviously next to it, a very cool example, reference 1500. Let's take a closer look. Next up, we have a early Rolex Oyster Perpetual Date. Now, as you can see, this dial is not going to be for everyone. It has patinaed, tarnished, damaged, whatever you want to call it, tropicalized. You know, it is developed this kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like this almost etched off kind of effect. Is very difficult to explain. In certain lights it catches beautifully, in certain lights you can sort of see it all a bit more clearly. You know, again, you be the judge of whether this is nice for you or not. One thing I can reassure you is that mechanically it is sound and it is beautiful inside, so you're getting a very reliable watch, but dial wise it has this, which you either love or you hate. You be the judge. You know, I know the previous owner of this absolutely loved it. He had incredible feedback from Instagram showing this watch as well. You know, people really liked it, and again, you either do or you don't with patina, and that's completely fine. But what a lovely example regardless. This is the reference 1500, which is the OP date in 34mm, and this one is from September 1965 with its original box and paperwork, and also original Rolex rivets clasp, as you can see, tapering down to this beautiful little clasp right here. Nice fits and ends. You know, just a really good looking bracelet that suits the watch perfectly. Beating away inside is the automatic Rolex caliber 1570, which is the OP with a date, as you can see. Also used in the Datejust line, but a very good looking watch. Now, worst case scenario, if you're not a fan of the patina of the dial and hands, you could probably find a dial and hands out there eventually, and this is a fantastic overall example to be able to put a nicer dial and handset in that you prefer. So you could always see it as a project watch as well. However, we're keeping it completely original for the value of what it is. But let's show on wrist and talk dimensions. So here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. You can see I'd probably need 2 links out and moving the clasp up a little for it to fit me. So a nice size bracelet, especially for the time. But look at that, perfectly proportioned at 34mm by 41.5mm lug to lug, only 11mm thick and 19mm lug. So you could throw it on a nice leather strap or a NATO if that's your kind of thing. So go check this one out on the website today. From there, another Chrono Toki, and this time one that isn't unworn and one that is actually been worn a little bit, and it's great to see because every single one we keep getting in, they're all unworn, they're not opened, which, you know, is great for the buyer, but as, you know, a collector myself, it sort of pains me a bit. It's like, open these up, enjoy them, at least give them a chance. And this is the Mori, and it's an absolutely awesome dial. Let's take a closer look. So another Chrono Tokyo. We've certainly had a few of these in over the past few months, and they've all sold very, very well. However, this is the first Mori reference, M-O-R-I that is, and our first actual pre-owned one. The rest have all been pretty much brand new, unworn. So it's nice to actually see one that has been enjoyed, and it really has. You know, it's not heavily worn at all by any means. You know, it still looks pretty mint, and it does come on this additional strap that they Chrono Tokyo did a limited edition of. Absolutely gorgeous looking thing. So you get the original strap and this additional strap, which wasn't cheap, and I think actually suits the watch really, really well. This is a very interesting green. It's more like a minty green, I guess you'd say, that's super glossy. Plays with the light very, very well. And the overall dial design is fantastic. This is what Chrono Tokyo get so right, in my opinion. Case proportions, but also dial finishing. I mean, if you look at those concentric circles around the outside near the minute track, they just catch that light so well and pair so nicely with the hands. Inside is an automatic Miyota caliber 90S5, a higher grade caliber Miyota, so it's not just one of their sort of entry level cheaper ones. You are getting yourself a very good and reliable movement. And the watch is from September 2020, and it does come with its box and paperwork and the original strap as stated. But let's show this one on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. Again, perfectly proportioned, not too big at all, and just looks so, so good on the wrist. I really like this strap as well. Reminds me of like a cigar leaf almost, with this colour and finish. Really beautiful. So this is 36.5mm by 43.5mm lug to lug, only 10.5mm thick and 20mm lug, so endless options to swap out of if you're not a fan of this combination. However, I think give it a try. You might be surprised, so go check this one out on the website today. Now onto a watch you surprisingly do not see often, and you know, we've very rarely ever come across them, and this is the Deville Hour Vision. Let's take a close look at this awesome watch. So next up, as I said, a watch you really don't see often, and it actually wasn't that big of a success at retail in the first place, which is kind of a shame, and that is the Omega Deville Hour Vision. This is the coaxial with the caliber 8500 inside, a very popular and well-used coaxial movement across the Omega range, especially in the early days. As you can see, a very nice looking movement. You be the decider of whether that is a good looking movement or not. I know some people aren't a fan of the coaxials, they think they're a bit too shiny. I get it, but it is a good looking movement and a workhorse nonetheless. But what makes this watch so cool is the sapphire sides. Now if I can get that in focus, there you go. You can see the sapphire sides on the side of the case, which allow you to see a completely different perspective of the movement that you would not typically see. Does it have any practical application? Not really, but it just looks kind of cool. And a little nifty feature that you can sort of show to your friends and other watch nerds, and they'll certainly appreciate that, especially when you get a loop to it and you sort of watch everything moving around. It's super cool to see. But thankfully, it has a really gorgeous dial as well. So if neither of those things are the reason you like the watch, you know, the dial probably will be the reason. Especially when you look at the finishing and the way the indices are applied and the recesses in the actual dial itself. It is gorgeous, multifaceted and really dynamic. And what I really like about it as well, there's not a single bit of loom on the dial. Now, that seems like a weird thing to state because it doesn't really matter, there's watches without loom, but it's very rarely seen, especially on what's considered sport models. This would be considered a sport watch, and not a single bit of loom, which I think is really nice. It keeps the design super clean, crisp and nice. The reference to this one I'm not going to bore you with, it's a very long reference, go look at it on the website, but this watch is from October 2015 and does come with its box and paperwork, which again is very rarely seen. These watches often come up as watch only for whatever reason, so it's nice to see. You have got the Omega deployment with, I believe, an Omega strap as well. Absolutely, you know, really good design, just works well with the watch. At the end of the day, it is 20mm, so you could swap it out for all sorts and, you know, really play around with it. This watch is going to look good on so many different things. But let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. It's not a small watch, but it's not a big watch either. It's sort of that perfect in between and works really, really well at 40.5mm by 49mm lug to lug. It's only 12mm thick and 20mm lugs, as I stated, so you can swap it out onto whatever you like. However, this combination really does work. It keeps it nice and simple and really brings all the attention to the dial as it should be. So go check it out on the website today. Now let's get the remaining of the modern watches out of the way. We're going to go over to the Seiko Pro Specs, and this is the 62 MAS re-edition with the awesome white dial blue bezel, the SPB213J1. Let's take a closer look. Next up is a watch we have had a few times in the shop, and I think it is absolutely awesome. This is the Seiko 62 MAS re-edition, essentially from the Pro Specs lineup of Seiko. This is the SPB213J1, which features that crystal white dial and that vibrant blue bezel, which is super glossy and in most lights actually looks black. It's when you really capture it that all of a sudden it goes this metallic blue. Absolutely gorgeous. Again, you'll either be a fan of it or you won't. It does match the second hand and it does look good on the watch. But if you're expecting this sort of deep, vibrant, constant blue, this might disappoint because it doesn't always look like that. As I say, it does look black in certain lights, which again, I think looks really good. And I wish they made a model with the white dial and the black bezel. They may do actually, but either way, absolutely gorgeous. So inside this is the automatic Seiko caliber 6R35. A very reliable hand-wound hacking movement. You have, it's automatic as well of course, you have the original Seiko bracelet, which is built incredibly well for Seiko. Now I say this all the time, Seiko make amazing watches, but they definitely lack in terms of bracelets and straps and all that sort of stuff. They're usually pretty terrible. Whereas this bracelet is built incredibly well, and for the price point, I think it is fantastic. You've got a full milled clasp. Obviously this is pressed metal, but the actual main aspect of it is milled, and the links themselves are very robust, thick, and well built as well. But a really good looking watch. This one is from March 2021 and it does come with its box and paperwork, but let's show on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go, sized comfortably to my wrist, which is just under 7 inches. This is 40.5mm by 47.5mm lug to lug, 13.5mm thick and 20mm lugs. It is one good looking, well proportioned and super comfortable watch that I'd highly recommend you consider if you're after a bit of a higher end Seiko compared to the Seiko 5 line, but you don't want to go all the way to Grand Seiko just yet. This is a nice in between to sort of get you used to Seiko at a different level. So go check it out on the website today. Now onto its slightly more affordable twin, basically, with a very, very nice colour scheme. This is actually one of my favourites of the references. This is the SPB147J1. Let's take a closer look. Now, as I said at the start, this is one of my favourites of this reference personally. I think it looks absolutely awesome. I love the sort of hints of gold on the inside, which remind me of gilt. Sort of gilting on old matte dials. You've got this really nice matte bezel. Everything about this just looks really good, and it looks so good on the rubber strap as well. I'm not too bothered that they didn't provide a bracelet with this one. The only reason I wouldn't buy one of these personally is because of the Pro Specs logo on the dial. There's nothing wrong with it, it's placed nicely. I just think if it wasn't there, this dial would be so clean and so nice, and all of a sudden this watch would be absolutely perfect, in my opinion. So there you go, there's my honest opinion. But this is the SPB147J1. It also has the Seiko caliber 6R35 inside. You have to excuse the noise of Clark and Wells, ridiculous. And we have to have the window open because it is boiling at the moment. As I say, 6R35 inside, a very reliable movement with screw down crown. Pro Specs obviously means it's gone through their testing and is part of their waterproof lineup basically. But a very good looking watch. This one's from September 2020 and it does come with its box and papers as well, but let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go. This watch would be perfect for the summer heat here in the UK at the moment. You know, you've got the waterproof screw down crown, you've got the rubber strap, you know, you could take this anywhere and do anything with it. It's such a great watch. 40.5mm by 47.5mm lug to lug, 13.5mm thick, not 35, that would be terrible, and 20mm lug. So again, endless options, and thank you Seiko for not being awkward with 19 or 21, as they typically do. This gives you so many options if you're not a fan of this, or if you need a shorter strap, because Seiko straps Rubbers are usually quite long, so do keep that in mind as well, but a good looking watch. Go check it out on the website today. Now that we've got modern out of the way, let's go to an era that's now called Neo Vintage with the 90s, which makes me Neo Vintage as well. But we're going to start with a birth year, talking about Neo Vintage. This is 1997 Zenith Elite Quartz. Let's take a close look at this awesome watch. So it's time for some Zenith, and you guys and girls who know me know I have a weakness for Zenith. I absolutely love them. Owning multiple personally, including an El Primero, which I wish I never sold. But this is another one that I think is really, really cool, and for the money I think you're getting a lot, you know, when you really stop and consider it. This is a Zenith Elite Tank, as I've called it, from 1997. You'll have to excuse all the fingerprints. It is a hot day, but there you go. Zenith, sorry, not Elite, Port Royal, my apologies. Port Royal 5 from 1997 in the tank shape and case design. Much larger than a traditional tank, which again really helps with the wearability, especially for you guys and girls who find that the tank, the traditional size, wears too small. This will certainly tick the box for you. Nice signed crown as well, and just nice overall design. You know, the popper red on there really helps. We've got it paired on this grey strap, which I think looks really, really good. And inside is a Zenith Quartz Caliber 877. As I say, this is from circa 1997, and you're just looking at a very good birth year option for anyone born in 97, like myself. This is something to certainly consider, but let's show it on wrist and toward dimensions. And here we go. Look how good that looks on the wrist, and the case is slightly curved as well, so it really does hug the wrist nicely, especially for those of you with a smaller wrist. You're going to find this wears really, really well as well. So 29mm by 43mm look to look, only 7mm thick and 20mm lug, so endless options if you're not a fan of this combination. However, I think it looks really good, suits it, gives it a t-shirt and jeans kind of vibe, whilst also that dressy appeal as well. So go check this one out on the website and snatch it up before I consider keeping this one as well. Now from there to a 1998 mid-size, or ladies, you can call it whatever you want, but I think a gent can totally get away with this. This is a gorgeous salmon dial or copper dial with a cabochon crown, automatic Zenith movement inside. Value proposition wise, this is fantastic. I think one of the best values on the table today. Let's take a closer look at this one. All right, next up is a watch that I'm going to try and sell to Danny. You just missed our conversation, but hey. This is a really awesome Zenith Elite automatic mid-size, as I'm calling it. Now, I will be completely honest, Zenith themselves, when this was out at retail back in 1998, they called it a ladies watch. However, I think it's just a mid-size watch. I think a gentleman can totally wear this, get away with it, especially if you like smaller watches. And I think you're saving yourself a lot of money as well in terms of a very well-designed, gorgeous watch with a very good, reliable movement, all in a smaller case, and you don't have to pay that premium. If it was much bigger, you'd have to pay quite a big premium for something like this, in my opinion. But anyway, this is a Zenith Elite automatic salmon or copper dial, however you want to call it. Also features a nice blue cabochon in the crown, which again is absolutely gorgeous. And that exhibition caseback, there's something about a movement that fits the caseback nicely, where you have this very sort of slim outer ring. I think it just looks so appealing, and it just takes up most of that. It's like it's a display caseback. This is what a display caseback is and should be for most watches that do it, but they don't actually get it this well. Now the movement you're looking at is the Zenith Caliber 680, which they have used for quite a long time. I believe it was debuted in 1994, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of the first movements to use the CAD system. Again, if I'm not mistaken, do check our website. We go into much more detail. But as I stated, this one's from 1998, so again, another great birth year option. And the good thing about this watch, if you're a gent watching and you have a wife or a lady at home, I would really recommend buying this and gifting it to her, and then stealing it from her every now and again, because it's honestly such a good looking watch. But that's enough of the rambling. Let's show on wrist and prove to you how well it actually wears. And here we go on my wrist. Now, is this a small watch? 100%. This is not a big watch. It doesn't wear big, it wears small, and it does look small, but I think it looks super classy, and I think you can get away with it. As long as you've got the confidence to wear the smaller watches, and also the ability to accept it's going to take you a little while to get used to the smaller size. You know, when you look down at your wrist, all of a sudden a whole new world opens up. So be careful actually if you are going into that, because you'll all of a sudden find that the smaller vintage watches, you're going to be buying a lot of those because now you feel like they work on your wrist. This is 31.5mm by 37.5mm lug to lug. Again, only 7mm thick. That is super thin. And 16mm on the lug, so endless options if you're not a fan of this combination. But go check it out on the website today. Now that we've got those out of the way, we're on to very interesting 1970s wacky stuff. You know, this is where I live and just enjoy, so I'm very excited to bring some of these to you. And we're going to have to start with probably one of the most eye-catching in my opinion, and that's the Eterna Sonic, with a really interesting dial, great bracelet, great case shape, very similar to my Zenith, my personal Defy. Let's take a close look at this one. So next up, we're looking at an Eterna Sonic electronic, absolutely awesome. Look at that dial. This is a blue fumé, as I would call it, or vignette, or gradient, whatever you want to call it. But you've got this really dark, almost black around the edge that comes into this lighter blue in the center. Absolutely beautiful. Now, as you can see from that second hand sweeping so smoothly, this is an electronic movement, and specifically the electronic caliber 1550 by Eterna, which is basically an ESA movement. So let's back up a little bit here. Tuning forks were invented by Bulliver, and the tuning fork was to basically create a super accurate movement. As a lot of you know, mechanical watches, they can deviate in accuracy, need to be regulated and so on, whereas Bulliver found a way to make it oscillate incredibly fast and be basically a tuning fork, as you can imagine, with a vibration that travels through the center. It's a lot more complicated than that, and I'm not going to go too much further because explaining it is almost impossible to me personally. I'm not very good at that. But just understand it's a very highly complicated and very well produced movement that Bulliver then licensed to a company called ESA, which are basically a subsidiary of ETA. ESA would then send these out to different manufacturers, including Amiga, Eterna, Satina, Tissot, and so many others, to be rebranded by them that they could use. So this is an Eterna, an Eterna 1550, which would match up to an ESA caliber of another number that you could see. So that's something to keep in mind. A very good and reliable movement used by many, many brands. But it's great to see in this watch. Now obviously you've got this really 1970s cushion case with this integrated bracelet, very reminiscent of my Zenith, and you have a nice Eterna signed fold clasp right there, so not quite the normal clasp, it separates completely up. You can see the case back there as well. As mentioned previously, these have been serviced, all these electronic movements. That's one thing to keep an eye out for. If you're buying electronic watches online, make sure they are serviced, because if not, you could be looking at a very expensive repair bill, because there's so few people left out there who can work on these movements. But this one is from circa 1970s, as I said. It's the reference 172TB, and let's show on wrist and torque dimensions. And here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. I'd probably say I need 2, maybe 3 links out for my wrist size, so if you've got a bigger wrist, you should be completely fine. But what a good looking watch. This is 37mm by 43mm lug to lug, only 10.5mm thick, and 10mm lugs from this point to this point, which obviously flares out much more and tapers down beautifully all the way to the clasp, as you can see. A very good looking watch, and surprisingly affordable for this kind of design, so go check it out on the website today. And before we move on to the next electronic, I do want to say all these vintage watches, we bought a big collection. I think I've mentioned it a few times, 83 watches total, and all of them have gone through the process of either being checked and serviced or going off to auction because they're not quite at the ability to get retail ready. So you can rest assured with these watches that they've had the full service, they've had the full works, and they're coming warranted. Obviously, anything this kind of age, especially electronic, you've got to be careful. Problems can happen, but that's why we provide a warranty, to make sure things are covered. Enough of that. Let's go on to this awesome Tissot, or T-Sonic, I think it's called. How do you say it? T-Sonic, that's the one. Let's take a close look at this with its awesome Tissot bracelet as well. So next up, another awesome electronic watch. Look at that dial. It is so futuristic. All those textures and colors with the blue. Absolutely gorgeous, and what an interesting case shape as well. Original sign crown, nice nut case back as well, which all comes out like a pod. Super interesting. And this is an original Tissot bracelet as well. One thing to point out straight away, it isn't the original Tissot bracelet. You can see it's not perfectly sized. However, I think it's close enough and it looks fantastic that you can get away with it. Obviously, we can have a dig round for a strap for you to swap it out on instead. But what a cool looking watch. This is the reference 40.8, and inside is a Tissot caliber, electronic caliber 2010, which is an ESA 9162. As I mentioned with the Eterna, if you watch that, if not, go back. ESA licensed the rights to use the movement from Bulliver, and then licensed that out again to every brand you can possibly imagine. Tissot, Satina, Eterna, Amiga, so on and so on. So oftentimes the ESA base you will find across the board in all the different electronic movements. Something to keep in mind, little interesting fact, but this is an all original case, all original dial and handset that looks fantastic. Nice original loom in there as well, which is aged beautifully. And this one is from circa 1973, and we can be exact because there is a way to reference the serial numbers against a database with Tissot, which is really nice to see. So 1973 and absolutely awesome. Let's show on wrist and taut dimensions. And here we go on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. I think this looks so cool, especially on that bracelet as well. This is 38.5mm by 42mm lug to lug. Only 11mm thick and 20mm lug, so if this doesn't work, I'm sure we'll have a strap option we can throw on for you. But a cool looking watch nonetheless, and I think well worth the price, especially when you see what that asking price is. And again, considering these are serviced, that is not a cheap expense on these electronic movements, and it's also incredibly important. So go check it out on the website today. Sticking to Tissot and going away from electronic, we're going to go to a Tissot 7, this absolutely huge TV dial, as I call it, with a Portuguese date. Absolutely awesome. Let's take a closer look. So another Tissot, and another blue Tissot at that as well. This is the Tissot 7 automatic. How gorgeous is that dial? The blue and the condition of it is fantastic. The handset, everything about this is so cool. This case shape with the TV design, this really nice period bracelet. It isn't Tissot signed, but it is period, and it's super comfortable and fits beautifully as well. Looks like it was meant to be on it, in my opinion. And such a great design. Now, interestingly, this is a Portuguese date wheel as well, and it also has a Portuguese import stamp on the case right there as well. So if you look at the photos, there are a couple of marks on the case, but that one is not a mark, that is an import stamp. So if you loop it, you'll be able to see inside the stamp as well. You've got an original signed crown, nice nut screw down case back as well, and inside this is the automatic Tissot caliber 2571, a very good looking movement and very reliable, and the reference to this one is 26808 specifically, and this one is from circa 1974. Again, with Tissot and the serial numbers, we can date exactly what the year is, or roughly what the year is. So 1974 is when this watch is from, and you can see it is very much of its time, unapologetic, but super cool. And let's show on wrist so you can see how it wears on my just shy of 7-inch wrist. And here we go on my wrist. Now, it does take a bit of practice getting used to how this clasp works. I'll show you taking it off in a second. But there you go. What a fun looking watch, that's for sure. It says a statement and a half, doesn't it? So this is 43mm by 39mm lug to lug. Very interesting proportions, 11.5mm thick and 24mm lugs. So again, if you're not a fan of this bracelet, you could swap it out for a strap. Although 24mm, they're usually quite thick and they don't taper a lot, so do keep that in mind. Whereas this clasp tapers nicely, so really cool watch. But let me show you how it works. You can see the bracelet is sliding out from underneath. Be very careful when taking it off so you don't drop the watch. But essentially the way it works is this slides underneath the gap, as you can see, and you just have to make sure you wiggle it through, have the bracelet paired up like so, and it slides underneath. Hopefully you guys saw that. And then you clip down to where it fits you once it's on wrist. So you've got to do that bit whilst it's on wrist. You can't do it before because obviously you won't fit it over your hand. So it does take a little bit of practice, but eventually you'll get used to it. So go check it out on the website today. Now on to another tuning fork electronic movement with the Titus. I got a feeling this is going to fly pretty quick because the design is fantastic. The blue dial is brilliant, and overall, you know, sign bracelet, everything it's just really cool. And for the money, I don't think you can go wrong. So let's take a closer look. Next up, another one I'm a huge fan of, and I think will be one of the quicker ones to sell straight off the website, especially when you guys and girls start going over and having a look at it. I think it's going to definitely catch your eye with design, but also just the overall look of it. I mean, how freaking cool, and the condition is fantastic as well. This is a Titus tuning fork stated proudly on the dial, and the dial is original blue, which features this gorgeous little texture, very reminiscent of the royal oak of a similar period. Obviously not quite to the same standard, but still very nicely done. You've got those original hands as well, which feature a little strip of loom, which is patinaed beautifully. And the dial overall is what captures me. And then especially when you compare it to the case shape and the integrated bracelet, again, just it all adds up to such a nice package. You've got the Titus signed bracelet right there as well, which is very nice, very secure, as you can hear. and a good looking watch. Now inside this one is the tuning fork ESA caliber 9162. Now this one isn't signed Titus, because some of them didn't bother renaming the movements, which cost an additional licensing fee, whereas just getting the movements and keeping them as ESAs I suspect cost a lot less, which is why I assume Titus went with this option. Obviously circa 1970s, as you can tell by the design, but also the movement, and just a good looking watch. But let's show on wrist and taut dimensions. And here we go on my wrist. Look at this, that is awesome. It really is like a mesh of all the worlds of 1970s coming together for this design. And again, when you guys see the price, it's going to fly pretty quick. I'm pretty certain of it. This is 38mm by 43mm lug to lug, 11mm thick and 9mm lugs. That's at that point to that point, which obviously tapers out massively and tapers down nicely to the clasp. Again, bracelet wise, this is big on my wrist, so you can be reassured. I'm pretty sure this is a full bracelet, which again is nice to have. I suspect this will go quick, so head over to the website now and be the person to grab it up before you regret missing out on this. And last but by no means least, a watch that some of you guys and girls certainly missed out on the last time we had it, because as you guys and girls often know, we buy back watches we sell, especially if people want to trade into something else or they just need to, get some money for other things. We're more than happy to buy back what we sell because we sell what we like in the first place. So this is a 1974 Seiko Lord Matic with the most interesting dial you've probably seen yet. So let's take a closer look. So let's see if we can get through this one. The camera just overheated. It is that hot at the moment, as I was almost starting with this one. So this is the awesome Seiko Lord Matic in this awesome 1970s case and bracelet, which is the original Seiko bracelet, in fantastic condition. And that dial is very difficult to capture, but in certain lights it's almost pinky. It's got this almost oil spilt kind of effect that happens when it hits the sun. It goes all like rainbowy, mother of pearl, like absolutely gorgeous. So this one is a very, very nice example, one that we've had before, and we purchased back off the customer because he's obviously wanting to swap out and get other things. We try our best with that and we sell what we like, so we're always happy to take back where we can and where it makes sense. And this is the reference 5606-6020 from circa August 1974, and that's based on the serial and the reference, which you can put into a database and find out a pretty accurate age. And that means inside is the automatic Seiko caliber 5606, a very reliable movement. The case is monocoque, meaning it's made of one piece, and you have to go through the front of the case to get the movement and the dial out, which is really interesting with a two-piece stem crown. But again, the design is everything here with this watch. It looks fantastic, so of its time, but done in a much more classy and sort of elegant way that doesn't scream from the rooftops that you're into 1970s watches like some of the other designs we've looked at today. But let's show this one on wrist and taut dimensions. And here we go on my wrist. You can see this looks so good in my opinion. It's almost like a bracelet that happens to have a watch on it. Super cool. 33.5mm by 43mm lug to lug, only 9mm thick and 18mm lugs. So you could swap this bracelet out, however, why would you? It looks so cool on it. So go check it out on the website today. So there you have it, guys and girls. This week's drop, 13 watches. Again, another big drop, and I can guarantee you the next few drops are also going to be huge because we've pretty much already got all the watches in. It's insane at the moment. So thank you all very much for sending us your watches either to purchase or to consign or whatever it may be, and please do continue to do so. If we do not purchase and we do not consign, we always try to at least point you in the right direction. Don't take it as anything against the watch. It's maybe we already have one coming soon, or it's just not quite what we're looking for to either purchase or consign at the moment. So again, don't take it personally. We get offered probably 10 watches a day minimum, which is insane. We have to filter through all that and choose the really good stuff, because at the end of the day, as I say, just reverse it. When you buy from us, you want to know we are truly behind everything we sell. Therefore, if I was to consign something I really don't believe in, you've got to weigh it up, right? So hopefully you guys and girls appreciate that. I'm sure you do. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you all keep well. Hopefully it's not too hot as it is here in the UK at the moment. And we'll see you all again next week. Take care.